get started today. First up, we are going to be talking to Shazia from Cambridge about studying during the pandemic. Thank you.
So studying in the pandemic is definitely quite a bit different to as it's been normally. So I'm in third year, so I've had a bit of experience studying both before the pandemic and during the pandemic. I think one of the major things is quite hard to find like motivation and to get into a routine, especially if you don't have that many timetabled hours and like a lot of your learning is self-directed. But I think this is a problem that kind of everyone seems to be having, and I'm pretty sure like the universities and people involved in like teaching, they all appreciate that, and they themselves are also kind of having issues with like just carrying on. But also in terms of like meeting people and stuff, it's definitely different this term because a lot of people are staying at home, but I'm pretty sure like I spoke to a lot of first years last term, and I think they still managed to find a lot of friends, and you know there's a lot of like virtual things that you can go to. So if that's something that kind of worries you, I think like hopefully the pandemic will be over by the time, or like it will be a lot better by the time that you guys would be going to university. But I think it's definitely not something that you should be too worried about.
That's great. Thank you very much, Shazia. A nice introduction there. And all of our panelists today are going to be students as well. So they're the best people to really give you an insight into what it's like to be at university at the moment. Next up, we're going to be talking to Jenny from Durham, and Jenny's going to be talking about her workload and how she manages her workload at university. Thank you, Jenny.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny. So I'm from Durham University. My course is economics with a year abroad. So I'm now in my fourth year. I go back from my year abroad last year. And in terms of workload, it changes as you progress throughout your course. So it's fairly easy in first year, and then it just gets kind of steeper and steeper as you go along. Usually, I suppose it will vary between unis, but usually what happens is you'll have a combination of lectures and seminars or tutorials. These are basically smaller groups of about 20 people, classes. And that is how you study, through lectures, seminars, and own work as well. You will have various different types of assignments, whether this is an essay, whether this is a research analysis paper, whether this is group work and some sort of presentation. And effectively, you try and specialize more as you go along. So you will start off with a broad range of modules at the start of your university academic career. And then whatever you like doing, whether you like stuff more to do with finance, you can kind of specialize in that as you go along to your final year, or if you prefer to go down a more essay-based route. For instance, I am the latter. I always loved studying stuff like the world economy, development economics, and all that really cool, exciting current stuff. So you can choose to do modules more related with this specifically. In terms of how I manage workload, it is a step up from A-levels in the sense that you don't have teachers there pushing you and checking whether you've done the work or not. Effectively, what you put in to the degree, you will get out effectively. But I think that you shouldn't worry about this because there are loads of people who can help you. Your lecturers and your seminar tutors are always there if you need any advice. It is a lot down to you and down to you doing extra reading and preparing for your classes. But at the same time, remember that you're not alone and you're in the same boat with everybody else who's on your course. Yeah, so that was my experience anyway.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Jenny. Next up, we are going to be heading to Leeds and we're going to talk to Rachel. Rachel's going to be studying how much time do you spend in class and do you study when you're not in class? Thank you, Rachel.
Hi, my name is Rachel and I'm a final year BA Geography and Spanish student at the University of Leeds. So firstly, I'd say my favourite thing about being a student is all the opportunities and new experiences that are available to you, both within and outside of your degree, and the people that you meet through these opportunities. So in terms of how much time do you spend in class and do you study when you're not in class? Both of these questions depend on your degree. So your contact hours, so by that I mean the amount of time that you spend in class with teaching staff, normally consists of lectures, which can be up to 300 people, so lots of people, and also smaller group sessions. So these can be seminars or tutorials, and they can range from about 8 to 20 students. So across all courses, I would say the average number of contact hours is about 12 hours a week. But as I said, this does vary depending on what course you do. And then in terms of studying when you're not in class, again, this depends on your degree. So often there will be preparation work for lectures and seminars. Lectures will always recommend you to do wider reading outside of class about the topics that you're currently studying or that you're interested in. And then finally, a lot of out of class time will be spent independently working on your assessments.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Next up, we're going to be talking to Nathan from LSE. That's the London School of Economics and Political Science. Nathan's going to be talking about where do you live, in halls, in a house or at home, and what is best for a student experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I am Nathan. And I'm feeling sort of about 50 years old here because I already have graduated. I graduated from LSE about 2 years ago, and now I am doing a master's at LSE. So clearly I liked university so much I didn't want to leave. In both instances, I study history. There's no future in it. Ha 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 ha. But yeah, so I will try and focus on the undergraduate side of things. That's still very fresh in mind, but forgive me if I kind of talk about my master's, which of course I'm doing at the moment as well. So in terms of living arrangements, it's pretty standard in London. So I'm the only London university here, I think, today. For certainly in your first year to be spent in hall of residence, and then your second and third year normally then to move in with the friends you make in first year. That's what I did. One of the great things about living and studying in London is there's just so many students. It's something crazy, like 300,000 students in London. And what I chose to do in my first year was actually live in an intercollegiate hall of residence. So I was a little bit worried about what people might be like at LSE. It's a common thing we hear. So I decided to live in a hall of residence that was actually a mixture of all the different universities in London, so UCL and King's and Imperial and whatnot. That was absolutely fantastic because, and I would recommend to everyone to look at living in a hall of residence in your first year. Just simply by virtue of the amount of time you have to meet other people and speak to other people and just really make those close friendships, you know, whether you are going and hanging out in the bar. That was the primary reason I picked my hall of residence, because it had a bar in it. Whether you are at dinner together or at breakfast together, you are just going to meet so many people. And I remember thinking back, you know, it's the point in my life where you have probably the most friends you are ever going to have at that one point in time, and probably ever will have, because you just know so many people. So that's great. That then gives you that base, those friends, to move into a private accommodation, which is also great. That brings with it a whole different sort of set of experiences. And actually, I knew a couple of people during my time in halls of residence who actually, although they were close enough to live at home, they still chose to live in hall of residence that first year, just to I guess, try and benefit as much as possible from what I'm talking about there in terms of social life. So I would certainly recommend it. Second year and third year, I think it's also a really good decision to live in a private accommodation. So you're cooking for yourself, you are making your own travel arrangements, etc. But of course, that will really vary as well, depending on what city or what part of the UK you're in. So yeah, that's my experience. I'm really glad to be here and happy to answer any questions.
That was great. Thank you very much, Nathan. Next up, we are going to be talking to Matilda from the University of Nottingham. Matilda is going to be covering how do you budget and what are the costs really like? Thank you, Matilda.
Cool, thanks. So yeah, I'm Matilda. I'm doing mathematical physics at Nottingham. So I'll be honest, I actually quite enjoy budgeting, so it hasn't been a huge problem for me, but I've had friends that have found it a bit more difficult. Essentially, Nottingham as a city is not an expensive place to live. Obviously, if you go, depending on where you go, it might be more expensive, but if you apply for a student finance, then you'll get a higher grant if you go down to London, or loan, I think they call it. So I guess the most big expenses are accommodation. I was in self-catered halls in first year, which I think works out cheaper just because you don't have to pay for your meals like through the accommodation. You can just go and buy the ingredients and then cook your own thing, which I also quite enjoyed doing. And especially if you have good flatmates, then you can sort of share between the flat. And so you might cook a meal for everybody one day and then someone else might do it for the whole flat the next day, which would work out quite well. I guess travel as well, you'd have to consider if you have to commute anywhere or, you know, be taking public transport anywhere. But again, you can get student discounts for a lot of stuff, which is pretty helpful. I don't think there's much more to say about budgeting, but there are loads of bursaries and things like scholarships that you could apply for through different universities, depending on what the university offers itself. And there are other things as well that don't come directly from the university. But if you go on and just a Google search for any available scholarships or things, then you can have a look into that. So that's worth doing. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Matilda. Next up, we are going to be talking to Ben. Ben is from the University of Sheffield, and he's going to be talking about how easy it is to make friends whilst at university. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Megan. So hi, everyone. I'm Ben. I'm a bit like Nathan. I've actually graduated already. So I studied an undergraduate degree in molecular biology. I've gone on to do a postgraduate degree in human and molecular genetics. So I'm from a science background. I've also lived in Sheffield all my life. So coming to university at Sheffield, I did know a couple of people when I went already. I'd still say it is quite a big change. And I did feel a bit worried in the first few weeks about making friends, but there's loads of ways to make friends. It's really easy to make friends at university. For example, a lot of your lectures are quite big. There's lots of people go to lectures. I found it's quite a social place, especially on my course. There's lots of core modules. So it's a really easy way to make friends, just sitting next to different people, having a chat with them. Also, the department organised a lot of settling in activities and social activities to help you get to know each other. And it's a really easy way to make new friends. But also the Students' Union was a great way to make friends. So at Sheffield, the Students' Union is a really big part of student life. And I really like the fact that you could go and join society. So society is a group of students which have a shared interest. At Sheffield, there's over 350 societies catering to all sorts of hobbies. This is a great way to make friends. You could go and join in something you knew or something you really enjoyed. And you could get to bond with people of a shared interest, which is a really easy way to make friends. So I joined Dance Society, and that was really fun and a great way to make friends for me. And also joined my core society and a couple of societies, and it's a great way to make friends. But also, you just meet friends in lots of other places. University is a very social place to be. Living in accommodation, you meet so many different people because there's so many people. It's like 5,000 people living in the same small area in Sheffield. So university is a very easy place to make friends. And I'd say that there's always people from a background similar to you. I was very worried about finding people who were similar to me because I'd not been to university before. I was first generation. But definitely it is a really easy place to make friends. And I really won't worry too much about making friends at university because the Students' Union and different societies put on lots of events to help you make friends, but also just going to classes is an easy way as well. So I won't worry too much because you'll definitely make friends.
Thank you very much, Ben. Next up, we are going to be talking to Olivia from the University of Southampton. Olivia is going to be covering, have you had support in planning for your career and what do you want to do when you graduate? Thank you.
Hi, yes, so I'm at the University of Southampton. I'm currently taking a sabbatical year actually, so I'm not studying, but have just finished, and I study politics, so that's my specialty. In terms of career support, there's a lot of different ways which you can find out about career potential at university. So one of the key ways is that they have career days. So employers will come in and do kind of a big open event where they'll talk about, you'll have different stalls, so you can go around and talk about all the different career options that are available. So they do some kind of specific ones. So Southampton has a really big engineering faculty, so they'll do some specific engineering days, but then they'll do some general ones as well. Another way is that your course lecturers will come in and talk to you about different options, and quite often they'll just send over job opportunities as well. So I found that I got a lot of emails with lots of different opportunities. Sometimes it would be employment that you could take during the summer as well. So if you were looking for things which weren't post-job but just while you were studying, there was options for career support around that. And different career providers would come in and give talks as well. So for example, I went to one around the civil service, and the civil service do a graduate scheme, and some representatives from the civil service came in and talked to us, so that was really helpful. Again, lots of opportunities are forwarded, but the universities also have a career service, so you can book appointments with the career service to talk about specific things. So you can talk through your CV, any questions you have, you can talk to them about what kind of different areas you'd like to explore. So if you're really unsure about which direction you want to head in after your degree, I was, because I'd had a degree in politics, so it's not very vocational. So you can talk to them around just trying to help you through that thinking. And then universities also have a jobs portal as well. So that's another way you can find some jobs that you can do during your degree. You can look for things like internships during the summer as well. Our university has a placement scheme where they help students get into those roles as well. And then again, there's lots of post-university offers to try and just help you find those things. And for myself, I've recently applied for a couple of grad schemes, and I've got offer from the police at the moment. So I'm looking at joining the Police Now grad scheme.
Thank you very much, Olivia. That was great. And lastly, we are going to be talking to Christos today from the University of Warwick. So this is our last mini presentation, and then we'll go on to questions. So make sure to keep submitting them, and we'll come back to them in a little bit for you. Christos is going to be talking about how did you decide which university to go to, and what advice would you give us if we're not able to visit in person before making a final decision? Thank you.
I hope everyone can hear me. It's a really good question. There's a lot to unpacking that. I'll try not to speak for too long. I usually go on too long. Anyway, so the first question, how did I choose Warwick? How did I decide on that? I think there are three main reasons. And obviously, bearing in mind, so we could go in there in person. I think a lot of these reasons weren't necessarily decided when I actually went onto campus. I did a lot of it through talking to people at the university and, from research at home, which I think a lot of you can do. So the first one was really subject league tables, and maybe I kind of put too much emphasis on this. I think looking back, I don't think that's as important as I thought it was. I think being in A-levels, being in school, kind of league tables are everything. That's what everyone talks about. But I did see that economics was really kind of highly regarded at Warwick. So I didn't introduce myself. I'm a second year studying economics at Warwick. So I did see that economics was very high on the league tables there. And, they seemed like a very good department. They had very positive reviews. And that really kind of attracted me to the uni. The second thing was location. I think this is quite an important point to consider. For me, I didn't actually apply to any London unis. I didn't apply to anywhere in the city, because that would have meant probably staying at home. I'm just on the outskirts of London. I kind of wanted to be on campus. I kind of get that away experience, having a brother and sister that had been to university. That's the advice they gave me, and I really appreciated that. For different people, maybe they'll have different perspectives on that, but that's something that appeals to me. And I think Warwick is, in the middle of the UK, and so you're one hour away from London, and we're really lucky because we have Birmingham. There's quite good network links. Otherwise, I don't think we'd have any good train links going to Coventry or Warwick. But anyway, so that's really good. And it also means, linking to the career thing, people are happy to come up to Warwick to say give presentations or have those networking events. So that's another bonus. And the third thing was really kind of the vibe I got from the uni. And I don't think this was just kind of when I was on campus, but really through the presentations I saw, through looking at the story of the uni, I kind of like the idea of having a more entrepreneurial kind of perspective. Warwick in 1965 was nothing. It was just a few buildings. It was really kind of just getting started. And then now you look at it, and it's just continuously expanding. They had a new sports centre built. And a lot of unis, you have this growth. And I just really felt that at Warwick. And because they're in what is kind of like a lot of green space, they have a lot of space to expand on, a lot of cheap land around it, they can just continue expanding. I can really see that developing. So anyway, so I was probably spent too long. I don't want this to sound like it's just a pitch for Warwick. This is just obviously biased because I had to have those reasons laid out, like, you know, when I was choosing. And you have to make sure that those reasons are like authentic to you, and you know that it's really, you're really sold on it. But the second thing, advice for you. So what should you do? You're not at university. Like, you can't go to universities. I really think that there are definitely things you can do, and actually probably opportunities from it. Like, my favorite quote is that every adversity carries with it a seed of equal greater benefit. You know, this is a massive adversity. It's tough. It's really kind of heartbreaking, like the kind of what we're going through now. But I think there is opportunity from it. First, I think you should look at 360 campus tours. Now, I've done a few like kind of tours for Warwick for students. They're going there, and the 360 tour is incredible. To be honest, I really think it's better than the actual tour in person, because you can go to more places. You don't get tired. You don't have to like walk like 3 miles like going around the campus. So that's really good. And you know, you're still going to get that insight into what it's like walking around campus. And the second thing is, I would say, now I wouldn't have done this if I was listening to someone in uni like giving me this advice. This would have been beyond my comfort zone. So I really really want to like emphasize that you should really try and like kind of push yourself with this and like step outside your comfort zone, your box. So I really wish I did it. But reach out to students who are in the university. And like, how do you reach out? Like, there was this CSSE student that actually reached out to me on LinkedIn, and you know, had a call, and I gave them some advice and, you know, learning from them. And I really recommend, like, say, making a LinkedIn account, reaching out to people that are in their second year, first year, studying that subject. What do they think the university's like? What's their perspective? I think that you get some really valuable insights, and you know, you expand your network, you expand those friendships, those relationships you have. So yeah, hopefully that kind of helps someone out there.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Christos. What we would like to do actually is ask all of our panelists today, why did you choose your university, and why did you choose your course? Like, how did you come to that decision? I feel like that'd be really useful for students listening today to know. So what we'll do is we'll start with Shazia again, and then we'll move through you all. So if you'd just like to tell us a bit more about why you chose to study where you did, why you chose to study what you are studying, and how you recommend students go about doing their research, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I don't think I explicitly said this before, but so I'm a third year medical student at the University of Cambridge. And so first of all, how I chose my university, I applied, obviously it's kind of different for medicine because you're only allowed to apply to 4 universities for medicine. And so I kind of applied to a range of universities, and they were all universities that I sort of liked the look of, and I think a lot of medical courses are quite similar. So I think in my mind I was more sort of looking at kind of what they sort of maybe look at, and maybe the hospitals that they are like partnered with, and kind of how that might translate to like what I want and like what I can offer in terms of like the application process. And then also choosing the course, medicine. I mean, there's a lot of other courses that are kind of in a similar domain. Like, for example, there's obviously like nursing and paramedic training, and also there's like biomedical sciences and things like that. But I think I just chose medicine because yeah, I always had an interest in being a doctor since I was quite young, and yeah, I mean, it was kind of something that I always sort of had in the back of my mind, so I didn't really have much sort of choices kind of thing, because it is like a course that's offered in a lot of universities, and it's sort of like a standard course, so maybe like some other people might be more helpful in terms of that question.
Thank you very much, Shazia. Next up, we'll go to Jenny at Durham, and she's going to hopefully tell us about why she chose to study, and also about her year abroad as well, and why you might like to look into doing that for your degree. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll talk about why I chose Durham first, and then I'll talk about the degree and the year abroad. So first of all, why I chose Durham. I applied to well, basically, I did this thing where I looked at the league tables and I picked the top 5 universities for my course, and economics, and Durham was in the top 5. I visited Durham for an open day. And this is going to sound cheesy, but it was one of those moments where as soon as like I was walking around, I felt this kind of like university atmosphere. I could see myself there. I knew it was the place I wanted to be. The city is beautiful itself. The environment is incredible. Like, it's not a very big city, but that makes it perfect because it's so easy to meet so many people there, and you form incredible friendships. Durham is a collegiate system, by the way. So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's effectively, rather than it being a campus uni, you have colleges spread out across the city, and you eat there, you sleep there, you have some events there, but you have events outside as well, in non-collegiate societies too. And I, just from walking around and from interacting with some students, I had this kind of realization that if this is the, like, just from talking to the people, if these are the type of people Durham produces, like helps, you know, nurture, etc., this is where I want to go. And in addition to that, I love all things film and theatre, and Durham Student Theatre is the biggest student theatre community in all of the UK. So for me, that was so important, and that was kind of a big deal breaker for me. Likewise, for the economics course, Durham was one of the few that I found that actually offered a year abroad with it. And I knew I wanted to do a year abroad. So going to the course and the year abroad now, the year abroad was amazing. Oh my God, I can't recommend it enough. I went to Marseille, which is the south of France, right on the coast. And I had an incredible time for the time before COVID broke out. I had an amazing time. I was there for 7 months. It got cut a couple months short, but I managed to explore the country. I managed to make friends. I managed to learn some of the language. So my trilingual goal is still going strong. And yeah, it was an incredible experience where I learned not only about the different cultures, not just the French, but you have other international students there. So a whole bunch of cultures. But also I got to experience life in a completely different environment, which, you know, it breaks you down, but then you build yourself back up again. It presents you with a lot of challenges, but that's so useful for you because you basically learn how to become a cosmopolitan global citizen, and it's brilliant. Likewise, with regards to the actual economics course itself at Durham, it offers you a lot of flexibility. So like I mentioned before, I'm really into global development and trade, international trade, stuff like that. And just through, I guess, looking at the modules on the economics website and talking to some previous students, I got a sense of how diverse it was and the chance to later pick more interesting modules as you progress throughout the year. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted to study, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my future. So I started thinking about what I like in general, and I realized I like current affairs. I like knowing, I suppose, how the world works and why it works the way it does. And also, I liked maths, but I was also a massive essay nerd. I loved doing English literature and stuff. And I did also the economics. I did economics pre-U Cambridge at my school, and sort of a combination of that just really made me think economics is a good all-rounded type of course. And if you don't know what to do, you know what, take it. You'll figure it out as you go along. And I did. And I have a very good. I'm going to have at the end of this year a very good degree from a very prestigious university to add to my CV and list of stuff, I suppose. And yeah, so I guess that's me.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jenny. Next up, we will talk to Rachel at Leeds about why she chose to study at Leeds and how she chose her course. Thank you, Rachel.
So I decided to study at Leeds because first, even though it's a campus university, it's extremely close to the city. Like, you could even say that it's within the city. So you get the best of both at Leeds, having that kind of intimate campus feel, whilst also being like walkable distance to all the shops, restaurants, etc. When choosing a university, I also looked a lot at the course. So what modules available, how much choice I would get in my modules, how I was going to be assessed. And then as I study a language, it was compulsory for me to do a year abroad. So that was a big thing when I was looking at my course, what options were available to me on my year abroad. And then in terms of my course, so I decided to do a joint honours degree, geography and Spanish, because I liked 2 subjects at A-level and I wanted to carry on studying them further, whilst I also thought I'd enjoy the flexibility of studying 2 subjects at a degree level. So if you do a joint honours degree at university, you have to study a minimum number of credits, so modules, in each subject, but most of the time you can choose how you split your degree between your 2 subjects. So by doing 2 subjects, I can tailor the course around what I'm interested in. So I only study the modules that I want to, and I can avoid modules that I don't like so much, both in terms of content and assessment styles. And I also think I also wanted to do a joint honours degree because I think it's beneficial, because you get different skills from doing 2 subjects. And also, if you're not 100% sure on what you want to do in the future, studying the 2 subjects often opens more doors for you. So that's why I chose Leeds and joint honours.
That was great. Thank you, Rachel. Lots of good advice there. If you're struggling to pick, or if you're not quite sure what you'd like to do, joint honours is a great option, so you can definitely look into that. And next up, we are going to be talking to Nathan from LSE about why he chose LSE and why he chose his course. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. Well, I'm an appalling ambassador for LSE because I didn't go to the open day. I didn't visit. I just kind of picked it. So I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask. I'd say my advice to people is, I think the first thing is subject. And if you know what you want to do in the future, if you want to be a nurse, and obviously you need to go and do nursing. If you want to be a vet, you need to go and do veterinary. But if you're someone like me who still doesn't really know, pick a subject you enjoy. That's the best advice I can give. It's so important, because otherwise you're not going to have the motivation to get up and do the study every day. It means you're going to come out with a worse degree. Means you've maybe not wasted your time, but you certainly could have made them better a bit. So I think the subject is important, first of all, because that will allow you also to eliminate other places. So obviously, if you want to study biology, well, you can't come to LSE because we don't do it. If you want to study English literature, you can't go to the Royal Veterinary College. So I think that's the first step. Think about, if you have a career destination in mind, or if you want to keep it more broad and do something you enjoy. But then I'd say the second thing after that, my advice would be is, rather than sort of stressing yourself out thinking, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? I would probably say that it's better to work the other way around and ask yourself, well, what do you not want to do? And for me, I knew pretty soon I didn't want to stay near home. I wanted to get away from home. I didn't want to be in a campus uni. I wanted to be in a city. So with all these things, you kind of start to narrow down your options, and you can have a look at the league tables and see what you can find there. But I would say that would be my advice. Ask yourself what you don't want to do as a useful starter to get you kind of thinking to a short list that you can then do a little bit more research on. But don't do what I do. Definitely go to open days and things like that. I'm a terrible example.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Alongside open days, I think we definitely recommend coming to our event on Wednesday as well. So do check the YouTube chat and the Zoom chat for the link. We'd love to see you there, and you'll be able to get lots more advice, and we're going to have all of the virtual tours for all 24 Russell Group universities will be available there as well. So you will be able to go on little tours from the comfort of your own home. Next, we're going to be talking to Matilda from Nottingham about why she chose to study at Nottingham, how she researched courses in universities, and why she chose her course. Thank you, Matilda.
Cool. So I guess my course I'll start with. I really enjoyed maths through school, so I knew I sort of wanted to keep that going. And then the physics side of things, it helps me like have an application for the maths. And also it has more kind of job prospects. So at first when I was looking around, I didn't know what you would do after a maths degree. So I was interested in sort of space at the time from my physics. So I was looking at all like aerospace engineering and stuff. And then it was kind of like, I don't really like the practical side of things. So I switched to more theoretical like physics. And then I decided on mathematical physics, which I really enjoy because it's run over the School of Maths and the School of Physics. So we've got like 2 departments going. So I get the best of both worlds, really. I have like tutors in both in first year. Obviously, you can use both buildings and all the facilities and things. And we get to do modules that are taught from physics or from maths. So, for example, things like black holes or relativity, and you think that they're physics concepts, but they're taught through maths, which I really enjoy, going into proper detail and getting a good understanding of where all this stuff comes from. And then Nottingham, I suppose, I came on an open day and really just liked the atmosphere, and I just felt comfortable and everyone was really friendly, and I could just sort of picture myself studying there. So I decided to come here, I guess. So I guess that's the I would say is the most important thing, which is quite difficult to get a feel for things when everything's online at the moment, but kind of go with your gut instinct, really. And that's, yeah, I think that's the safest bet to do.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matilda. Next up, we're going to talk to Ben from the University of Sheffield about why he chose Sheffield, and any advice he has on how to go about picking a course and how to narrow it down. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Megan. So I'd say I actually chose my course before I chose my university. That's kind of the way around I did it personally. So I looked into what I was interested in my A-levels, and I knew I really enjoyed studying genetics, and microbiology were really interesting to me. So I wanted a degree that I could kind of pick and choose the molecular biosciences I really enjoyed. So I decided to study molecular biology, or you might see it as biological sciences at some universities. And I really like this course because, especially at Sheffield, you can be really flexible on your specialisms. So in your first year, you'll study a really broad range of subjects. So I studied biochemistry, genetics, microbiology, and molecular biology all in my first year. And then I specialised, so I went through the degree. So in my second year, I picked my favourite 3 topics. And in my final year, I specialised in my favourite topic, which was genetics. And I went on to do a master's degree in genetics after my bachelor's degree. So what I really liked about the course was that I chose something that was really interesting to me, and I really enjoyed it. A bit like Nathan said, you've got to choose something really passionate about, because it is hard work at university, and there will be times that you do find it really difficult. So having something you're really passionate about and enjoy will lead to much better grades, and also you just enjoying yourself a lot more. But yeah, I really like the flexibility. I really like the fact I could also understand the nitty-gritty detail. So one of the most interesting things I think about molecular biosciences is being able to explore life at its fundamental level. That's something I really enjoyed in my course. I also liked the laboratory side of it, and working in the laboratory. I got lots of practical time. So I had 6 hours a week in first and second year. And then in my final year, I got to do a research project. I got to spend lots of time in the laboratory researching something I was interested in. So I got to look at how we can look at chromosome structures to diagnose patients with leukemia. And that's kind of why I chose my subject area. And then the reason I chose Sheffield as a university more generally, because I know I found it really difficult to pick my firm and insurance choice. The reason I really like Sheffield is because it's a city campus. So it's kind of a bit like Leeds. It's a mixture between a campus university and a city university, as in the buildings are really close together. So you're only 10 minutes away from your different lectures. It's really easy to get around campus, but at the same time, you're really close to city centre. You're about a 10-minute walk from the city centre in Sheffield. And also Sheffield's a really green city as well. So not only is campus really close to the city, you've also got loads of lovely parks around the campus, such as Weston Park, Crooks Valley Park. And And the accommodation as well is set in really nice green and beautiful grounds. You also can get the bus from campus straight out into the Peak District, which is a really great thing to do with your friends in the evenings and weekends. I also really like the fact that Sheffield has an amazing students' union. There's loads going on all the time. We have an amazing building. It has its own nightclub with 5 weekly club nights. My favourite is Pop-Tarts on a Saturday, which is pop music. And there's also all the societies and clubs going on with all the activities associated with those. We have our own student-run cinema with films for only £3. And there's loads of other things going on in terms of extracurriculars at Sheffield. But one of the reasons I just really love Sheffield is the community feel of it, the entire campus. Everyone is really supportive of each other and really sociable, and you get to know each other, and you're also really well integrated into the town. Locals are really friendly, you'll get to know each other. Both local people and the students get on really well. And that's one of the reasons I really love studying at Sheffield.
Great, thank you very much, Ben. Sheffield was actually my insurance choice as well. It's a really lovely university. And I ended up going to York. So we've actually got 9 students from Russell University on the call today. So we're definitely the best ambassadors for the group. Next up, we are going to talk to Olivia from the University of Southampton about why she chose to study at Southampton and why she chose her course. Thank you, Olivia.
Hi, yes, so I chose politics. I studied history and politics A-level. And I think as I was doing it, I just really dawned on me that I had a real interest for it. And so I wanted to find out more. And I found myself just looking it up a lot of my free time. And I really wanted a course. I looked around a couple of different universities, and I really wanted a course. For me, it was important to do a BSc. So I looked for a university that had a BSc in politics as opposed to BA. But that was quite my own preference, and there wasn't much logic for it. So I had a look around. I then made a list, and I went to quite a lot of open days. I quite enjoyed visiting open days. You get quite a good feel for the university, I think, at open days. Just getting to have a look at what university life is like, see accommodation, see the campus. And I ultimately settled on Southampton because I felt really engaged with before I started. So I selected it as one of my 5 choices. Partly because of the grades. Actually, it had a good grade selection, and then I felt really engaged. I had a lot of communication given to me before I joined. I went to an offer day, which really convinced me as well, where we had some talks, kind of sample lectures and that kind of thing, talking through what the course would be like, and it was just around the time of Brexit and everything, so it was a very politically conscious time, and I found that really engaging, and we got to see around the accommodation, etc. So I found that really interesting, so I kind of was sold on it, and I'm quite a heart over head person. That's just how I work, so I was quite sold on it. But then I had another debate when it came to acceptance day, because I got higher than the offer I was expecting, a higher grades than I was expecting, so I did have the option to go through adjustment. So I did debate around a bit. I had a weekend where I was kind of looking around at a couple of different universities and thinking, oh, do I change? But really it was the head over heart thing that stuck with me, and I came down to Southampton again for another look around the campus, and it was just really green and sunny, and I thought, oh no, I've kind of already committed my heart to this, so I stuck with it, and I'm really glad I did. I think for me, the spaces around campus were really important, and so the fact that Southampton has a really green campus, it's very central, there's good connections to the city, good connections to London, good connections all around. That was really important to me. So I think you kind of have to do a bit of analysis around what are the things that matter to you. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Olivia. Next up, we're going to talk to Christos. Christos has actually already covered this topic for us. He gave us lots of detail about why he chose Warwick and some advice about how to choose a course. So Christos, I wondered if you'd like to tell us a bit about where you lived in your first year, and any advice you have for students who are moving to university about what it's going to be like for them living there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Warwick, you get to stay like around campus, like very near campus. A lot of second years might stay away from campus or maybe near campus, but in first year, you're given that privilege. So I stayed in a place called Claycroft. I don't know if any of you are looking at Warwick, maybe you've heard of that word, but that kind of like set of accommodation there. And the reason why I chose Claycroft is I've got a very big appetite, and they're right next to the Tesco's, and so it's like 5-minute walk away from the massive Tesco's. That's like 24/7. So that like sold it for me. I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to say, which is probably not a great reason, but anyway, so that worked out very well. And also, I think like maybe I was like kind of thinking about location, like, do I want to be near the center of campus? And arguably that's kind of in the mid-range. It's not right in the heart of campus. It's kind of a bit on the outskirts. But I would say, like, pretty much every accommodation and every other university, I'm sure it's the same, that is like kind of prioritized for first years. They're going to ensure it's near enough campus to make it convenient for you. So the other thing I think was really big, and like many of you choosing accommodation will probably be confronted by this option. Do you go en suite? Do you share a bathroom? And I really like Claycroft because, like, I was able to kind of share between, it was, I think, a bathroom between two people. So, it means you get to make like a kind of stronger friendship with someone. You get to kind of like still get that experience of like, that community experience. Like, okay, you have a shared kitchen, you still have that community vibe. So that was really good. But, some of the challenges, I think, as like many other people who like start university, it's a weird experience, isn't it? Going away from home, and like you're probably worried about that, like how are you going to adapt to that new lifestyle, like changing your habits. And I think it's obviously there's going to be some discomfort there because you're changing, and we like habits. We like to kind of stay doing what we know, like within our comfort zone. Maybe some people love that. Maybe some people like a bit more uncomfortable with that. I do think like there are some things you can do to kind of prepare for that, and there are some things you can like look forward towards that. I mean, personally, when I kind of moved away, I really like the independence you got, and the way you could like do your own shopping, the way you could like kind of cook your own food, the way you can like be much more in control of your schedule. I would say one of the challenges was kind of finding the time to cook, finding the time to kind of take care of those side activities that maybe like you hadn't previously been used to taking care of like every single day. And so I would recommend like kind of maybe learning, just, it doesn't take like a master chef, but it's just like learning a few meals, like maybe 3-4 meals, 5 meals, maybe like one for each working day of the week. Like you rotate around, you have your little like repertoire, and you kind of go through that. And also like kind of bulk cooking as well, just, because if you're going into campus, even if you're remote learning, like it's nice to have that kind of efficiency. Like you cook one big meal that you can also eat the next day. I really kind of jumped on that strategy. But obviously a lot of that, I think I was kind of stressing about that quite a lot. I was thinking like, right, I need to learn these meals over the summer. But, I think you shouldn't really stress about that. Like, when your environment changes and you're under pressure, like we adapt, don't we? Humans adapt. So you're going to be able to like learn from other people. You're going to be able to experiment. And I think it's a great opportunity to, kind of like take that independent leap and begin to experiment with changing your different habits, your different schedules, and really and that helps you forge like a new characteristics, a new kind of type of personality, like kind of, and develop in different ways. I think like I probably overrated that kind of fear of like moving out and changing completely. It wasn't as bad as I thought, and actually it was really nice. Kind of changing, like you almost become a family in the unit you're in, and we had one kitchen where we'd like kind of, I think there was 8 of us, and we had like another kitchen right next to us, and we kind of like, we joined the other kitchen, our hob broke, so we went into the other kitchen. There's just a really nice kind of community vibe there. So learning a few meals, that would probably help you out with that one, and then choosing to be next to the Tesco's if you like to eat, which like me.
Thank you very much, Christos. If you would like to find out more about what kind of facilities are on campuses, whereabouts different accommodation is placed, and what the accommodation looks like, I definitely recommend going on university virtual tours. And they will all be available at the event on Wednesday. So I've popped the link in the Zoom chat again there for you. There'll be a whole room at the virtual event dedicated to virtual tours. So you won't have to go through lots of different web pages to find the tours. They'll all be in one place for you. You can check out a few different at a time and really make the most of your time and your research. Before we answer a few questions, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the event and how it works. And just in case you haven't been to a virtual event before, they are a little bit different. So what you have is one room where you have an exhibition hall, and that's when you'll find booths from all 24 Russell Group universities. We also have Student Finance England attending on Wednesday as well. So you'll be able to ask them any questions you have about student finance, about the loan system, about maintenance fees, about tuition fees, all those kinds of questions. So I definitely recommend coming. There'll also be an auditorium where we'll have 13 live webinars, just like this one. I noticed in the questions today that a lot of you have asked about Cambridge and about Oxford. There will be a webinar dedicated to applying to Oxford and Cambridge, and both Oxford and Cambridge will be at the event as well, so you'll be able to talk to their representatives and their ambassadors to ask any questions that you have. There'll also be a webinar about how to put together a competitive application, how to do your personal statement, recommendations about work experience and volunteering that you could do in advance in order to give yourself a really strong chance of being accepted to the Russell Group University. So yeah, definitely come along. It's a really great opportunity to talk to all of the 24 Russell Group universities in one place. They don't usually do events all together, but they've come together for this one to make sure that you've got the best support available whilst you're at home. So you don't have to travel all around the country to have a look at all of them. You can do it all from the comfort of home and log in at any point in the day between 12 noon and 7 p.m. So do come along on Wednesday. We'd love to see you there. The link will be in the YouTube description if you're watching on Catch Up, and it's also in the Zoom chat. Okay, so thank you very much for all of the questions that we received through on the Q&A today. We have been working through them. Some of you will have got responses directly back from our ambassadors. We have received over 400 questions. So if we haven't had a chance to answer yours, then do come along on Wednesday. We're going to go through 8 now. So what we'll do is we'll give each one of our ambassadors a question, and they'll give you a little bit more detail about that question. And we're going to go in the same order as we went for the presentations. So we will start with Shazia from Cambridge. Shazia, how did you pick a college at Cambridge, and what advice do you have for students who are looking to pick their colleges?
So I think I personally picked my college. It was basically just on sort of like random things. Like I was like, oh, it's quite pretty. And, you know, I just kind of liked the vibe of the college. I thought it was quite relaxed and the people seemed quite nice. But I think in general, people worry a lot about choosing colleges. And I think in general, I don't think there's that much need to worry too much, because first of all, like most people at Cambridge, the vast majority love the college that they're at, no matter like which one it is. And also the way the application process works, this is also the same for Oxford, by the way. It kind of works so like you apply to a college, but I think it's like 25% of people don't actually get into the college that they applied to originally. And that's basically because like sometimes some colleges are, you know, oversubscribed to, and then other times like others aren't. So what they do, if they have applicants that they think are good, but they don't have space for them that year, they basically put them into a pool for other colleges to take them out. And so I think it basically doesn't really matter what you sort of use. Like I know some people try and like predict how many people are going to apply to one college and use stuff like that. And I think it might work, but like for the most part, most of the people I've spoken to were like, oh yeah, I liked the bar, or I liked the room, or I only saw one college, so I just chose to go there. So yeah, that's my advice on that.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have a question for Jenny from Durham. Jenny, what expectations did you have about your student life before you went to university, and were they different to your experience once you got to university?
That is a question. I think I can't really remember what I expected. I expected it to be definitely more independent. I expected it to be a completely new experience. I know that much. And I think I was just really looking forward to not living kind of with my family, I guess. I mean that in the best sense, like, you know, when you're grown up and you kind of think, oh, okay, it's time to fly the nest now. I think I was really looking forward to that. And then I got there and it was an overwhelming amount of new stuff that I had to adapt myself to. Meeting new people, living with new people. I actually ended up sharing a room. I had a roommate in my first year as well, and that was a new thing. Living in catered accommodation as well. So my college, I went to Castle College, officially known University College, but in Durham everybody calls it Castle. that's catered, so it was odd not kind of cooking for myself because I've got used to doing that at home. And I think what I remember that the first couple of weeks I felt homesick, and I was really surprised by that because I didn't think I would. I'm a pretty independent person and I do a lot of stuff by myself, and I was ready to go to university. I was very excited, and yet I think it was just the fact that everything was so unfamiliar all at the same time. It stressed me out a bit, and that is something that I just didn't expect that I would go through. But then, you know, once you meet kind of your people, once you make your friends, once you establish yourself, get used to your surroundings and everything, it becomes your second home. And the other thing I expected, but this exceeded my expectations, was I thought I'm going to go there and I'm going to try loads of different things and it's going to be great. And I did do that exactly. And it was even better than I imagined, because I decided that I was just going to throw myself into everything. And I think just all the various experiences that I had, and bear in mind, some of them aren't amazing. Some of them are just, you're like, right, okay, well, I've tried that now and that's that, never again. But I think overall it was just a complete, it was a roller coaster of events and emotions. But looking back on it now, it was so useful for, like, I guess helping me to grow up. And it happens every year as well. Like, you'll go in your first year and you think, oh, okay, at the end of your first year, okay, I'm used to this now. And then you go into your second year and you think, oh my God, well, the new freshers, the new first years, they're so young. Was I like that? And then you have a whole new experience in second year as well, which is completely different because you're more established and everything. And yeah, it is something that will change you a lot, but it's the best type of change possible. So I can't recommend it enough. It's like, I mean, if looking back, I wouldn't change anything. I loved it all and it made me who I am today. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jenny. Next up, we have a question for Rachel. Rachel, do you have any tips for putting together a personal statement? Any kind of little hints or advice that you can share with the students who are currently working on their own application?
Yeah, obviously it depends on your degree. So I would really recommend looking on the universities that you're interested in. Often, depending on your degree, it will say what kind of things they are looking for in a personal statement. So for some subjects, it's really important to show that you have work experience or volunteering. Or for some subjects, so for example, in my personal statement, I really concentrated on things that showed my interest in my two subjects, whether that was things I learned in school or things that I went to outside of school. As well, it's important to focus on, I know that when you think about a personal statement, when you actually write it, there's not actually that many characters. So it's important to try and squeeze in as much about you as you can in that short amount of words. But also I think it's important to show like the academic side of you to do with your subject that you want to study at university, but also a more personal side of you. So again, this depends on your degree choice, because it's more important for some subjects, so say medicine, to have more about your volunteering and your work experience than your own personal interests, so some hobbies. But when you're talking about your hobbies and things like that, it's really important to bring out a bit what like the skills that you've learned from those kind of things. So what I'd really recommend is just going through the universities that you're interested in, looking for anything that they might say about your subject or what they want to see in a personal statement, and that will really help you to write it.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Next up, we have a question for Nathan from LSE. What is the student support like at university? Are there services in place to help with mental health and stress whilst I'm studying? Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. It's a really important question at the moment, obviously. Yeah, so I mean, certainly I can speak on LSE's behalf. So we do lots of different things. I think maybe it's worth prefacing this. Obviously, for all of you here today, going to university is a really big deal, and there is a massive shift in not necessarily the workload, but the type of work you're doing, and that can present challenges. Little things like, how do I do references, or how do I read properly, or I have no idea what that professor just said. Please can someone explain that to me. So at LSE we have services that are there to support you academically, in terms of kind of development and seminars and skills. But on the kind of more personal side, it's completely sadly, very common to find people across universities who are struggling with all sorts of different issues, particularly in their personal lives. So yes, at LSE there are sort of counselling services and support services you can make the most of, as well as kind of student operated kind of support services as well. So if you don't necessarily feel comfortable going to a professor and talking, then there's normally sort of peer support and those kind of people. The final thing I'll say on support, because it's so relevant, and I saw a few people in the chat asking these questions, is on financial support. Certainly at LSE, and I'd say this is probably true across the Russell Group, we don't ever want someone to not apply to university because they feel as though they can't afford it. If a university is right for you, and you think you're the right person for it, and you've got the right grades, and it kind of matches up, then the money shouldn't necessarily be the thing that stops you. So we at LSE, we give a huge amount of financial support to students from all sorts of different backgrounds. Some of those based on merit, but the majority based on financial need. So if you do fall in that category, it is worth looking at what scholarships are available. And secondly, as well, the other thing which is really, really important right now is there is also financial support available kind of throughout the year. So particularly this year, I know lots of students who might have lost jobs, for example, and that's a really big deal. Lots of students, myself included, I supported myself by working throughout undergrad. If you lost a job, or your parents are struggling to support you due to pandemic or other reasons, there are also kind of ad hoc pots of money you can apply for and claim if you need that help. So there is lots of support. It's a challenging time, but it's really important to know that there is that support there, and you can and should make use of that if you need it.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Next up, we have a question for Matilda from Nottingham. Matilda, have you found it more difficult to make friends during the pandemic? And how do you stay in touch with your university friends whilst you're socially distancing?
Yeah, so I'm in my 4th year, so most of my friends are from like 1st and 2nd and 3rd year, I guess. So I haven't had to actually meet new people, which I imagine is quite challenging. From what I can gather, though, with the new first years that have come to Nottingham, most of them are still staying in halls, so they still meet people from their hall accommodation. And then there are still virtual events that you can go to, and specifically on your course as well. I think they're trying to set up little virtual common room type things where you can just go online and chat with people. In terms of keeping in touch with people, depending on restrictions of lockdown, sometimes you can just go out for a walk with one other person from outside your household, which is quite a nice thing to do. I'm lucky in that I get on really well with my housemates, so it's quite nice just staying in the house with them. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, but it's manageable.
Thank you very much, Matilda. I know that lots of universities are arranging events for you to meet other people. I know that when I was a first year, we actually had our own Facebook group of all first years in York, and then we were put into a group chat with everyone that we were sharing a flat with. So you'll definitely be opportunities to mix with people that you're in the same college with, on the same course as. There'll be lots of opportunities to chat and to get to know each other even before you start your degree. So that's really great. They really do promote mixing. So don't worry about not knowing anyone once you start university. They'll definitely be things in place for you to get in touch with people. Okay, next question is for Ben from the University of Sheffield. Did you have an interview for your degree? And if yes, do you have any advice about people who may have to do an interview for their degree? Thank you.
So I was interviewed at several different universities, including Sheffield. I will point out now that the University of Sheffield does not interview for this course anymore. So if you're applying to molecular biology, we do no longer interview. But if you are going to other universities that do have an interview, I'd recommend reading over your personal statement the night before, making sure you're familiar with what you wrote about, because a lot of universities will ask you questions based on what you wrote. I remember being asked a lot about some of the information I put in my personal statement. They were asking about why I was interested in the course. And I talked about some things I'd read, some articles, and I wanted to hear more about why I found these articles interesting, but also just keeping up to date with what the current affairs are in your topic area. So for example, if you're interested in biology, reading New Scientist or Scientific American, watching TED Talks, reading the news. Lots of BBC News has a really great science page on there, lots of information about the latest developments, and just keep up to date with what's going on in your field, but also practicing. So practice with a family member, some really common questions. You can normally find these online, some common questions you might have a university interview. Doing lots of practice to make sure that you feel confident and comfortable when you're answering questions. As sometimes it can be quite nerve-wracking doing the interview. I know I was very nervous, but I found it quite an enjoyable experience because I get to talk to an academic about what you're really passionate about and why you really love the subject. And a lot of the time in interview, depending on the subject area, it's just they want to see what you're like in person, and it's you match what their expectations are of you on paper. So don't worry too much about the interview necessarily being the deal breaker, as not every course it is a deal breaker. Definitely in biosciences, it was not a particularly serious interview. It was much more relaxed and enjoyable. And I really enjoyed doing the interview once I got in there. But yeah, definitely doing lots of practice with a family member or friend even. And so you do feel more comfortable and confident answering very common questions and just making sure you know your stuff really. But don't worry about not knowing the answer to a question as well, being quite politely saying back to them, oh, I'm not really sure, could you rephrase that question? Or I'm not really sure the answer to that, but this is what I think, is also a really completely okay answer to put as well. So don't worry too much if you do get an interview, because I'm sure you'll know loads about your subject area by the time you get to it.
Thank you very much, Ben. That was really useful. And especially if you do end up having a virtual interview, you can definitely have a practice on Zoom. Even if it's someone in the next room, just ask one of your parents or siblings to sit on Zoom with you and have a practice, go through some questions, get used to saying the words. It's not as daunting if you do have a go beforehand, just as if you're doing a mock paper for an exam. It always feels much more easy and calm if you've had a go beforehand. So thank you for that advice, Ben. Next up, we're going to talk to Olivia from the University of Southampton. Would I be able to have a part-time job alongside studying? And are there lots of opportunities available to kind of have flexible work whilst I'm studying? Thank you.
So doing a part-time job while studying does depend quite a lot on your degree. So depend what you're studying and what your hours are like and your timetable. I know lots and lots of students who do a part-time degree while studying, so yes, definitely is possible. And as I mentioned in my introductory talk, the university can help a lot with this. So universities' careers departments can often help find those jobs for you, especially if they're degree related. However, Bristol Group cities also have a lot of work available in them. So I think generally it's quite easy to find jobs. There'll sometimes be some work with the university as well. So doing open days help, working in the students' union, working in the students' bars, etc. So there is quite a lot of work you can do alongside your degree. I think doing anything outside of your degree really depends on what your degree is and your time management. So it depends what works best for you. So it is quite individualized. So if you're someone who spends lots and lots of time studying outside of the degree, then you will find yourself with less time to do extracurricular things and work, etc. But it's definitely manageable. And I was putting in the chat as well, universities often don't do teaching on Wednesday afternoons to allow you to do extracurricular things during that period. So there's time during the weekends, in the evenings, Wednesday afternoons, to kind of do that other side of things. So to do any part-time work, to extracurriculars, sports activities, clubs and societies, etc. So there's a real breadth of things you can do outside your degree, and there is definitely time to do it, but it just depends on you about how you allocate your time. So you might want to allocate your time to just, once you finish your degree, once you finish studying, once you finish doing all the work for the day, you might want to just put down the books and chill out in front of the TV, which is also absolutely acceptable. But if you're doing that more, then there's less time for part-time work. So it just depends on how you're allocating and spending your time.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Our last question for today is for Christos from the University of Warwick. An important question for students considering going to uni. How do you balance studying and your social life, whether that's going out or taking part in societies? What kind of tips do you have for making sure that you're staying on top of both? Thank you.
Yeah, that is a really good question. A really hard one to answer. I think, like, especially, is it like, I don't know if people probably resonate. I used to be someone at sixth form, you know, you do your work, you do your A levels, you really focus, and then, you know, maybe extracurriculars, you do a few, but like, you just want to get your A levels. I really advise like to change that mindset. If you were like me at uni, really kind of embrace opportunities, embrace things that you think are maybe like outside your comfort zone, things that you think you don't have time for. Especially, I think the biggest thing for me, and I know it sounds very stereotypical when things like, okay, economic student, like trying to kind of get work experience, like in first year, go for spring weeks. I think applications was something that I struggled to kind of balance. But, you know, I really recommend that. I don't think uni is made just to do your course and stick to that course. I think it is made to go for those extracurriculars, to do societies, and not just a mainstream society. For example, I'm part of like the finance society, but also something a bit more niche. I really wish I went to like the gliding society. Like, how cool would it be to like, you know, get slung like, I don't know, a few hundred feet in the air in like some gliding plane and come down. Because of my fear of heights, I didn't let myself do that. So I really like kind of recommend that you step outside your comfort zone and don't worry about trying to think, I don't want to overwhelm myself with tasks before you do it. Like that, you know, that pressure will force you to become good at managing your time. And, you know, like, and just a general principle of that, with the 80-20 principle, you know, 20% of what you do will lead to 80% of the results. Like, if you need to, and if you're kind of like, kind of under pressure, you will start to prioritize what is most important in your degree, and you'll be able to kind of streamline your focus. So I really recommend never letting that fear of like not having enough time go for something. Obviously, that's one end of the spectrum. That's an extreme end of the spectrum, saying just do everything you can. Obviously, like being focused is important. Having that laser focus is powerful. I'd say golden rule, maybe being part of two societies and having like kind of strong commitment with those is good, but that means at the start you probably want to experiment with a variety of societies, and you know, still kind of logging how much time you're spending within your degree to make sure you're not going under with that. But how do you actually manage your time? I think I read this book, I think it's Carl Newport. He said like it was not how to become a straight A student. It was another one, like to do with college advice. You know, in America they call it colleges. So he said that in the morning the best way to plan your day at uni is just get an A4 sheet of paper, like, okay, not A4 in America, but anyway, a sheet of paper, and down the margin of the line, number the hours from like maybe 8 a.m. till, you know, kind of, I do it in 2 centimeter increments, right down to the end. And then first schedule in your pre-commitment, your lectures, your seminars, your meetings with friends, or like maybe a call or something like that. Then, like, you know, calculate how much free time do you have. And then you can just like very easily see, how am I going to allocate my time? And you just fold up that piece of paper, you put it in your pocket, and you take it wherever you go. Whenever you get a reminder, whenever you kind of like think of something you need to book for the future, a reminder, you put it on the back of that piece of paper. And that is just a very like old school, simple way of planning your day. You know, you have your Google Calendar. You know, Google Calendar, I'm not promoting Google or anything, but having that is really important. But also having a piece of paper that you've written, maybe even ahead of the day, planning tomorrow today, that can really be effective in terms of juggling all those different things. Because, you know, at uni, you're not working for someone else. You're not just doing one thing. You are really kind of juggling a load of different lifestyles, a load of different activities. And having that planning, that organization can really pay its dividends. So that's what I recommend. That strategy has really helped me.
Thank you very much, Christos. In your first year, maybe for some degrees that your first year doesn't count towards your final year as well. So it does give you a little bit of an opportunity to breathe and to learn how to structure your day and how to structure your week. Talking about trying different societies as well, often they'll have a week where you can kind of dip into different events and dip into different societies, give it a go, see what you like. So definitely have a look at what the universities you're applying to offer, how that first year might look for you, and how you can get involved and learn how to structure your time whilst you're at university. Unfortunately, that was our last question for today. It's been a really fantastic webinar with lots of insight from lots of different students, and I hope that it's giving you a really good look into what it's like to study at university. university, especially what it's like to study at university at the moment, with lots of things being online, and how that spirit of being at uni still stays. You won't have too much of a different experience. We do hope that we've managed to answer your questions. If you have anything else that you'd like to ask, either to any of the universities who've been here today or to any of the other 16 Russell Group universities, do come along on Wednesday, and we'd really like to see you there. It's a really useful event, and definitely take advantage of it whilst it's live. You can also come back and view the webinars for up to 2 weeks as well. So don't worry if you can't see that particular webinar live, you can come back and have another look. So take advantage of all of the information that's available to you. A big thank you to all of the panellists today. We talked to students from the University of Cambridge, Durham University, the University of Leeds, LSE, University of Nottingham, University of Sheffield, University of Southampton and the University of Warwick. So a really good selection, but only 8 of the 24. So definitely come on Wednesday to find out more about all of them. We do hope to see you there, and I hope you've enjoyed the webinar today and have a lovely evening. Thank you.